My wife's long-running affair with someone I once called a friend came crashing down when I caught her red-handed. So I printed out every single one of their secret messages and exposed the entire truth to family and friends, tearing apart their web of lies in the most public and satisfying way possible. My former spouse, Mia, age 26, betrayed my trust with a friend of mine, Jack, also 27. Our paths crossed 5 years ago when I was 22, at a mutual friend's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, I a groomsman, and destiny placed us at the same table. From the moment I saw her, I was captivated by her beauty. As we conversed, we discovered a surprising number of shared interests and an immediate connection. We spent the dinner deep in conversation before moving to the dance floor, where we spent the night celebrating, drinking, and eventually sharing a kiss. When we finally pulled apart, the newlyweds approached us, eager to play Cupid. We simply brushed off their teasing and continued enjoying the evening. We parted ways without exchanging contact information, but a week later, I received a text from her asking me out. The bride had shared my number. Naturally, I agreed, and our relationship blossomed. Our relationship was largely harmonious, marked by only minor disagreements and nothing truly serious. 2 years into our courtship, I proposed, and we married less than a year later. Our marriage lasted a little over a year before everything unraveled. Just before our first anniversary, subtle changes began to bother me. Mia became increasingly protective of her phone, her girls' nights grew more frequent, and our intimate life practically ceased to exist. I raised these concerns multiple times, but my worries were dismissed as insecurities. She continued as if my feelings and attempts at communication held no weight for her. As a result, I grew more distant, no longer offering a goodbye kiss before work, and our conversations became sparse, reserved only for essential matters. One night, while she slept, I discreetly checked her phone and laptop, scanning texts, emails, and messenger applications. Finding nothing there, and recalling similar stories, I decided to check her car. I retrieved her keys and, inside her vehicle, discovered a second phone. In that instant, I understood what was happening, but I desired irrefutable evidence for our confrontation to prevent any flimsy excuses like it only happened once. I examined the phone and found just one contact. I meticulously read every message, then connected the device to my computer, printing every text and photo. I spent the remainder of the night researching divorce attorneys. Hours were dedicated to reading lawyer bios in my home office until I found one I favored and sent an email. Since it was a Saturday, I knew he wouldn't be in the office. My next step was to identify the man. I dialed the number, pretending to be a representative from a well-known service provider, as everyone seems to have them. Jack's name appeared. It took me a moment to connect the dots, but when I did, I erupted. I was shouting and cursing in my office, which prompted my wife to open the door to check on me. Seeing her, I sharply told her to leave. She closed the door and retreated to our room. I had never before cursed at my wife or raised my voice beyond a normal tone. Throughout the day, I remained in my office, silently seething, staring blankly at the wall. I called a friend, the groom from the wedding, and told him I needed a drink, asking if he would join me. He must have detected something in my voice, as he inquired if I was all right. I admitted I wasn't and truly needed a drink. Without another word, I grabbed all the printouts and headed to the bar. I arrived first and ordered 4 shots of whiskey and a beer. I was finishing my last shot when my friend, Ted, arrived and immediately asked what was going on. I straightforwardly told him, Mia is cheating. He expressed sympathy, and I asked if he wanted to know with whom, then revealed it was Jack. He became visibly agitated. He was the one who had introduced me to Jack, and all he could repeatedly say was, I'm sorry. Jack and I were never extremely close. We wouldn't initiate plans, but we were friendly when we encountered each other at gatherings. I instructed Ted not to mention this to anyone, as I had just discovered it and hadn't yet spoken to Mia or a lawyer. I asked him not to tell his wife, and, if she inquired about my demeanor, to say I was experiencing work-related difficulties. He agreed. We drank and talked for most of the night. Around 3 a.m., I called an Uber and went home. This was the first time I had looked at my phone since calling Ted. There were numerous missed calls and texts, all from Mia, asking about my whereabouts, when I'd be home, and if I was okay. I arrived home to find her asleep on the couch. I simply walked to our bedroom and went to sleep. I woke up to find her in bed beside me, so I dressed and left the house. I went to retrieve my car and then headed to my office, immersing myself in work for the entire day. I returned home around 10 p.m. To my surprise, my wife was there to greet me and informed me she had prepared dinner. She asked if I wanted her to heat it up. I declined and went to bed. She soon followed, asking what was wrong with me. I told her to leave me alone and that I wanted to sleep. She persisted, and eventually, I snapped, yelling, "Mia, stop. I'm trying to sleep. Go away." The next morning, I received an email from the lawyer suggesting we meet later that day. I confirmed and prepared for my day. I went downstairs to leave, and Mia had made breakfast, asking to talk. I took a small plate and sat down. She began by saying I had been acting differently, going on and on about how I had changed and wanting to know why. I told her work had been stressful and that soon it would all be over. I finished eating and told her I had to go. I went to my office and counted down the minutes until my meeting with the lawyer. When I left, I told my assistant I was going out to lunch with a client, as my wife would sometimes call my workplace. The meeting with the lawyer went well. I handed over all the information I had collected on her. The lawyer expressed his regrets about my situation, but was pleased that I had gathered such thorough evidence. He explained that since we live in an at-fault state, my wife would have very little claim to most of my assets. I admitted I hadn't even considered that. My sole focus was on divorcing her as quickly as possible. He asked to keep the evidence, but I preferred he only make copies, as I hadn't yet confronted my wife and didn't want to hear her excuses. He agreed, and his assistant made copies. I inquired when she would be served with the papers, and he informed me it would be in about 2 weeks. I thanked him and departed. I returned home to confront my wife, but she wasn't there. I called her, no answer. Called again, still no answer. I sent her a text. "I don't care if you're with Jack right now, get home. We need to talk." Lo and behold, she called me within a minute, asking what I was talking about. I simply told her, "Get home now." She arrived about 15 minutes later, and I stated, "Wow, look at that, 15 minutes. That's about the same distance between here and Jack's, isn't it?" She looked at me dumbfounded. I gave her a moment to compose herself, but she just stared at me. Then I said, "Well, nothing to say?" She attempted to deny and gaslight me, and I allowed her to continue. She worked herself into a frenzy and began to insult me. I slammed my fist on the table to silence her and pulled out the evidence, first showing it from the side, saying, "Look at this mountain of things I gathered on you." Then I presented each printout individually. She then told me to stop and began to cry. She tried to apologize and told me she loved me. I responded, "Honey, what happened to that energy you had before? You were so intent on degrading and insulting me just a minute ago." She tried to embrace me and reiterate her apologies. I held out my hand and told her, "Don't touch me." She suggested we go to the bedroom and do whatever I liked. I looked her deeply in the eyes and told her, "Sweetheart, I will never touch you again. Do you want to know who else has these photos and messages? My lawyer. I'm divorcing you. Now, pack a bag, gather your clothes, and get out of my house." That was 3 days ago, and I haven't heard from her. I apologize for the length of this account and any spelling errors. I'm curious for those who have been in my position. What can I expect from here? Thank you for reading. Update 1. After I shared the initial part of this, you all offered a wealth of advice, most of which I followed this morning. I plan to do some damage control in my life, so I scheduled an appointment with my doctor for an STD check, which is in 2 days. Next, I began reaching out to those closest to me, my father and a few friends. They have all been incredibly supportive, offering their own advice and asking if I needed any assistance. However, as I felt I had this situation under control, I declined their help. I then proceeded to contact her family. I sent a text to her mother and father, thanking them for welcoming me into their family and expressing gratitude for all they had done for me, but informing them that Mia and I were getting divorced and that I would miss them terribly. Not really. They were quite overbearing, and while they are good people, I'm content not having to deal with it anymore. I then told them if they had any questions, they were welcome to ask. I didn't hear back from them for a while, so I moved on to Mia's sister. This was somewhat painful because her sister and I were close friends, and I knew this would strain our friendship. I texted her, "Hey, I'm sorry to have to text you this, but Mia and I are getting a divorce, and I wanted you to know. I want to thank you. From day one, you accepted me as a brother. I will be around if you ever need anything from me." Around the time I sent that text, her parents responded. I'll summarize how the conversation went. "Parents, we are so sorry to hear this. What happened? Why hasn't Mia said anything to us?" Mia has been having an affair for at least a year. I suspect it started before our wedding. I'm unsure why she hasn't reached out, but I think you should call her. She left the house. I figured she would have gone to you." Parents, "No, we haven't heard from her. We'll call her. Thanks for letting us know. Are you sure she was having an affair?" I am positive. I found their texts." Parents, "We're so sorry that she did that. We'll try and get in touch with her." After dealing with her family, I moved on to Jack's fiancée. I can't recall if I mentioned in the first part that he is engaged, though it was brought up in some comments. I thought this would be difficult, that Mia and Jack would have concocted some elaborate scheme, but either Mia didn't tell them I found out, or they are simply foolish. I sent her a text around 2 p.m. and asked if we could meet for coffee or something. By 2:05 p.m., she agreed and told me to meet her at a rather unpleasant hipster coffee shop across from her work at 2:30 p.m. I arrived first, ordered my terrible coffee, and waited a few minutes. She walked in, ordered hers, and joined me. I told her there's no easy way to say what I'm about to tell you, so I'm just going to blurt it out. Jack has been cheating on you with my wife. It's been going on for more than a year. She was obviously shocked, so I then told her. I only found out a few days ago. I know I should have told you then, but I had a divorce to get started and my own distress to deal with. She asked how I found out. I recounted everything from the first post. I then asked if she wanted to see the evidence I had gathered and pulled out a binder. She took the binder and skimmed through the messages and pictures, then just started to cry silently. I told her she was more than welcome to take the binder, and extra copies if she wanted, to confront Jack with it or to see if he would lie. She thanked me, stood up, took the binder, and I told her if she needed anything from me to let me know. She nodded and walked out looking very defeated. I know you all advised me to stay sober and keep a clear head, but my world has simply collapsed. I'm going to take this week to sit on my back porch, drink, smoke cigars, and play loud music. After this week, I'll stop feeling sorry for myself and return to my usual routine. On a more positive note, I've already packed most of her belongings, clothes, jewelry, etc. I also included our wedding album and every photo containing her in the boxes. If and when she returns for her things, I don't want her here any longer than necessary. Also, before you ask, no, I didn't damage her clothes. Apart from a few picture frames, nothing is broken. As of right now, nothing else is happening. I've told everyone I needed to tell, my doctor's appointment is scheduled, my lawyer is diligently working to extricate me from this nonsense, and 90% of her belongings are boxed up. I truly don't know what else remains. If she stays out of my way, this might be the smoothest divorce ever. Thank you for reading. Advice is always appreciated. Update 2. Hey everyone, I apologize for being out of touch for a while and not responding to comments and messages, but I think I've caught up. Now for the update. Since the last update, I've been indulging in my self-pity, drinking, and more drinking. I'd say this is my first semi-sober moment since I discovered everything, and I can't quite put into words how I feel. I suppose numb is an accurate description. In the last update, I mentioned that I had notified everyone, and the only one who hadn't responded was Mia's sister, with whom I was very close. Well, that night I wrote the update. I continued my drinking binge after posting and passed out on my back patio, surrounded by a bottle and a few beer cans. I woke up to the smell of breakfast being cooked. My first thought was, oh, Christ, Mia came back and thinks that breakfast is going to make up for what she's done. I worked myself into a rage and propelled myself out of the chair, ready for a screaming match. But to my surprise, it was Mia's sister, Emma. I stood there for a moment, trying to calm myself down, but when Emma saw I was awake, she sprinted to me and wrapped her arms around me. She didn't say anything. She just took my hand and led me to the table and placed a plate in front of me. As I ate, she told me how sorry she was and that when her sister showed up at her house, she just said that we were having problems and it would be fine in a few days. Then Emma told me that when I texted her that we were divorcing, she asked Mia, if it would be fine, why is he divorcing you? Apparently, Mia just broke down and told Emma everything. I scoffed and said, there's no way she told you everything, and proceeded to recount all that had happened. Emma told me that Mia had claimed it was a one-time thing and that I was blowing it out of proportion. I told Emma that I had no intention of getting back together with Mia, and if that was why she was here, she was wasting her time, and if she was in contact with Mia, Emma needed to tell her to find a lawyer. She laughed and said she wasn't here for her sister, she was here for me. She told me that of course she'd be there for her sister, but that she and I are friends and she wouldn't abandon me, especially since I didn't do anything wrong. I stood up and went to her side of the table and just hugged her. I was so worried that all this nonsense going on would ruin our friendship, and hearing her say that made me feel so much better. Emma stayed with me for 2 days in the guest bedroom and left this morning as I am preparing to leave for my cabin, which I owned before the marriage, so Mia can't touch it. I was gathering my hunting and fishing equipment. She asked if she could join me, but I told her, as much as I would like that, she should probably go check in on her sister. She agreed, hugged me, and left. I am truly grateful to Emma for being there for me, and before any of you say she's interested in me, she's not. She's also 20, and that's far too young for me. It's just a really great friendship. I almost forgot to say I went to the doctor's, got tested, and the results should be in on Monday. I've reached out to Jack's fiancée a few times just to check on her. She tells me she's fine and doesn't know what to do. I told her if she wants to meet anytime next week so she could vent, I'm more than happy to listen. Thank you all so much for reading, reaching out, and all the praise you've all given. You all have been a light in a truly dark time in my life. To any of you who are going through this as I am, the only thing I can say is keep your head down. Focus on what you really want, whether it's divorce or reconciliation. Set your goals one at a time. In my case, lawyer, then doctor, and notifying everyone close. Keep it off the internet, though. Also, set time aside to express your feelings. Thank you again, and I'm sorry these updates are always so long. Update 3. In my last post, I told you all about Emma coming to my house and staying for a few days. She left when I was going hunting at my cabin. Good news, I got a buck, a nice fat 8-pointer. I got him on my first day out there, which I'm very happy about, as it left me the rest of my time to go fishing. I only caught 2, but they were decent size, so I made one my dinner and butchered the other. I spent the rest of my stay at the cabin cleaning my deer and enjoying the views of nature. Other than a drink or 2 a day, I spent my trip sober, as I promised my drinking was only for last week. Now, on to the last few days. I got a call from my doctor, and I'm all clear. It's not such a shock, as Mia and I haven't had many passionate nights in a few months, but all the same, you can never be too sure. I reached out to Jack's fiancée, but didn't hear back for some time. She eventually responded, telling me she's staying with her family right now. She didn't really go into much detail, but her staying with her family, you can only assume, as I do, that means it's not going so well. At least she's with family, safe, and with all the support she could need. I told her if there is anything I can do, all she has to do is reach out. She asked me to meet and get coffee the following day, which I, of course, agreed to. The following day, we met at the same unpleasant hipster coffee shop and talked for about 2 hours. We discussed everything that happened with Mia and me. She wanted to know what steps I was taking, if I was divorcing, or if there was any chance I would reconcile. I told her, after someone cheats, in my book, that's it. The amount of selfishness and disrespect it takes to cheat, let alone for a year. She obviously didn't care for me. I asked her what her plan was. She told me she's confused about everything, that everything she thought was true turned out to be lies. She wasn't sure what her next move should be, if she should move on, or if she should forgive him. I told her, if you could forgive someone for cheating on you for that amount of time, she's a better person than me. She told me all of her family was telling her that she should forgive him and go on to get married. I told her I was going to be blunt with her and went on to say, just because it's what your family wants doesn't mean you need to follow along. Then I said, Jack obviously doesn't care about marriage and what it all means. He cheated on you, his fiancée, with my wife. If that doesn't show you he's not marriage material. I told her she needed to do what she thought was right and not to have anyone other than herself make decisions that will affect her life. I told her, when I found out, all I could do was think of a way my heart could trick my brain into thinking of some way I can accept it and forgive her, but I just couldn't do it. I also said, I only talked to one person, but I had already made my decision, and no one could change my mind. I bet when you went to stay with your family, you had a pretty good idea of what you were going to do, but you let too many people in, and they all gave their own take on it. I finished by telling her, all she needed to do was to follow her gut, that her brain and heart will always lie to her. But if her gut feels something's off, 9 out of 10 times, her gut's probably right. She soon after thanked me, and we left each other and went home. The following day, I received a message from my lawyer that Mia had successfully been served at work. I thanked him for all his work, especially in the time frame he had gotten it done. Not long after that, Emma called and told me Mia hasn't left her room all day and she's sobbing in bed. I told her she was served and is probably realizing how badly she messed up. Emma asked me how the cabin was and if I got anything. I told her everything I did and how my time was there. We talked for a moment and hung up. After that, I prepared myself and my house for my wife's explosion. I figured if there was any time she would, it would be soon, now that she's been served. So now I am waiting patiently, biding my time. I have pain relievers on standby for what I can only assume is going to be a bad headache. I told my friend, and he agreed. If Mia showed up, he would race over to be a witness just in case. All else fails. I'm currently waiting for Hurricane Mia to tear through my house. If or when she does, I'll send out another update. Thank you all for reading. Update 4. About an hour or so after I last posted, I was waiting for Mia to show up at the house and go ballistic. I had no real reason she would do anything, but given everything that's happened, I never really knew the woman. I checked all the cameras I had installed, both inside and outside, to ensure they were working properly. I called my friend, letting him know that Mia was served today and that if she showed up, he needed to get to my house as soon as he could. I wasn't going to jail because of this woman. Turns out I was right, because Mia showed up at the house, banging on the door, screaming to be let in. I immediately called my friend and Emma to get here because Mia was beating down my door. She was cursing my name, begging me to let her in, calling me every name in the book, and questioning how I could be so heartless. She's not wrong, because the entire time she was screaming and banging on the door, all I could do was laugh. I then wondered why she didn't just walk in, as she still had keys, at least to my knowledge. When my friend showed up, she was still screaming and cursing, so he started to record on his phone and stayed in his truck. But this idiot brought his wife with him, who is Mia's friend, so she got out and tried to calm her down. She walked up to Mia, putting her arms around her and trying to get her to talk. Mia then slapped her across the face, screaming at her to mind her own business. That prompted my friend, who now has a video of it, to call the police. She continued to scream and curse until the police arrived. When they did, she tried so hard to play the victim. One of the two officers walked up to her, and she started to cry and tell them I hit her and threw her out of the house. My friend and his wife told the other officer that when they came to the house, she was yelling and banging on the door, so they couldn't confirm that I didn't do what Mia said I had done. After that officer was done talking with my friend and his wife, he came to my door, and when I opened it, Mia said, "There, that's him. He hit me. I want him arrested." He started to put me in cuffs when I told him, "I can prove that she's lying to you. All I need is my phone." The officer stopped and told me to show him the view from the outside cameras. After reviewing the video, he apologized for jumping to conclusions and automatically assuming I was the one in the wrong. I told him I didn't fault him, but he then told me that they received 15 calls total from my neighbors, and apparently, during Mia's rant, she had screamed out, "He hit me." So the officers had already made their judgment. After having to deal with the police for about half an hour, Mia ended up being put in cuffs and charged with disturbing the peace, public intoxication, and a DUI. As the police took her into the car, Emma showed up and came to me, asking what had happened. I showed her the video on my phone of it all. The officer then came up to me to hand me the case number and some other paperwork. Emma started to ask questions about the charges, so I just went back inside. Emma followed soon after and sat next to me. She told me she left her house for 10 minutes to run to the store, but when she got back, Mia was no longer in the living room, so she thought Mia had gone to bed after she drank too much wine. Emma and I talked for a while, and she asked me if she could stay the night. I said she was welcome anytime. She told me that Mia had to spend the night in jail. I don't know why, but they could bail her out in the morning. She told me that when I went back inside, she called her parents to let them know what was happening and to see if they could bail Mia out because Emma doesn't have that kind of money. We had a beer together and soon went to bed. When I woke up in the morning, Emma had already left to meet with her parents. I haven't heard from Mia, Emma, or their parents, but I don't think it's a fun conversation. Update 5. I haven't heard from Mia since that night, but my lawyer was contacted by hers, letting him know he'll be representing Mia. Finally, we can start this process. I also reached out to Jack's fiancée to see if she has any news on her front. We only texted back and forth, but she told me she has kicked him out of her house and had her father and brother pack up all his things and drop them off at his house. She told me her dad and brother wanted to beat him, but she asked them not to and that she just wants to put all this behind her and move on. She thanked me for checking on her and tells me her close friends are there for her when she needs them. I sent her the link to my Reddit page so she can see all the support you all give to me and to her. On Friday, the moment I got off work, I raced home. My plan was to go back to my cabin for the weekend. When I arrived, Emma was in my driveway. She wanted to grab her sister's things and had a list of what my wife expected. I skimmed through it, and all but one thing was already in a box or sitting in my garage waiting to be picked up. I told her, "I'm not transporting or touching anything that's in here. I'm not going to be responsible if Mia wants to claim I destroyed her stuff." I told her I'd pay for a moving company to come and pack and take all her things for her because right now I'm going to my cabin and don't have the time to deal with Mia's nonsense. She said that would be great and hopes I have fun. She took a box of Mia's clothes and put it in her car. She then turned to me and asked if she could tag along this time. I said, "Sure, why don't you go back home, drop off the box and pack a bag for yourself?" By the time I went to the store and packed up the truck, she was pulling up. I locked up my house and drove off to the cabin with Emma. The weekend went really well. The last time I was up there, I realized what a gem that place is. It has a beautiful view and is completely secluded, so I don't have to deal with any people. It's a place where you can truly breathe and relax. On Monday, I called a moving company, and by today, Tuesday, 3 guys in a large truck pulled up and started loading. I had every box open and recorded as they closed the box and picked it up. I took pictures of all the furniture and recorded as the movers loaded it. I thanked them all for tolerating me and tipped them each an extra $50. I then sent all the recordings and pictures to my lawyer and carried on with my day. The house seems empty, but also clean without all her things here. When I started this process, my lawyer told me not to get rid of anything that could be considered shared, so I put most of the furniture in a storage unit. I've been sleeping in the guest room since she left, so up until I started writing this post, I've been buying all new furniture. I'll most likely be keeping the majority of it in the garage now that I have the space. I won't be keeping the house, even if I win it in the divorce. It holds too many now bad memories. Thanks for reading. Update 6. It's been a while since I've posted. I coach high school baseball, so between getting this divorce finalized, dealing with my soon-to-be ex, and coaching these kids, I don't have much free time at the moment. Quite a bit has happened, so this might be a lengthy post, so please bear with me. A few days after the movers delivered her things to Mia, my lawyer received some paperwork claiming I damaged her belongings and demanding I pay her $1,500, or she would take me to court over it. My lawyer sent hers all the videos and pictures, asking precisely where the claimed damages were that she alleged I caused. He told me all this does is demonstrate to the judge how unhinged she is, and it might be a nuisance now, but when it's time for court, this will all be perfect evidence. I don't think her lawyer was prepared for how meticulous I am and that I will photograph and document everything. When I discovered my wife's affair, I was, for some reason, drawn to this page and read all the horror stories about the things these people's former spouses did to them, and I absolutely refuse to become another one of those stories. I've prepared myself for almost every outcome and accusation she could make. I wouldn't put anything past her at this point. Mia had called me once every other day, but I never picked up. If she left a voicemail, I didn't bother listening to it. I just sent it to my lawyer. Every time I send my lawyer something, he always tells me, "You are a lawyer's wet dream. You listen to everything I say. You gathered a mountain of evidence. On your own." I have yet to have a client that has done so well. I wasn't exaggerating when I said he says that every time, but it also brings a smile to my face every time. Getting that reassurance from him that I'm doing everything correctly just makes me feel a little better about this whole situation. About 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, my lawyer informed me that we had enough evidence to settle this out of court, and if it failed, it would look good on us for trying. So, we set a date a week ago to meet in a neutral lawyer's office. Before we met, he told me, "No matter what, don't react to anything Mia might say, and our discussion will be recorded for a judge to read if it goes to court." We arrived in the early morning and went into the office. To my surprise, she was already there, waiting with her lawyer. We walked in, and the lawyers began greeting each other. Mia and I sat there silently, waiting for what was about to unfold. Mia's lawyer started by asking what we had to offer. Mine scoffed and said, with a mountain of evidence of the infidelity and Mia's inappropriate behavior afterward, "The only thing we'll offer is half of the selling price of the home and half of the savings account. That's more than any judge would award you. Basically, what you came into the marriage with, you'll be leaving with." Then he looked directly at Mia and said, "If you decide to go to court, I will put every message, making you read it all out loud. Then I will put every photo up for the entire court to see, and make you describe in detail what you're doing in each photo. Then I'll bring up your recent charges and play the video that was taken that night." Mia started to tear up, looking at me, asking if there was anything she could do to make this right. I said, "You've been cheating on me since before our wedding. All I can prove is a few weeks before the wedding, but I expect it was much longer. There is nothing at all you could possibly do to make me forget or forgive you for what you've done. Sign the papers. It's more than you deserve, and I want to be done with this whole sham you created." She cried obnoxiously for 15 minutes, having to excuse herself to the restroom. When she returned, she was still in tears but signed the papers and walked out not long after. So, in about a month, everything will be filed, and all I'll have left to do is sell the house. I want to thank you all for reading and all of the advice you've given. I don't foresee anything else happening, but I could be wrong, and if it does, I'll let you know. But this will probably be my last post, so again, thank you all. I hope what's happened to me has helped at least one person out there.